Ham, 24/7 Sports, here doing a little bit of a recruiting podcast. We got me, the man, Brian Peroni. We're going to hit on some hot recruiting topics. We're going to talk about Texas A&M's big recruiting weekend starting tomorrow. A bunch of big-time names coming in. Really pretty much headlined by commitments, some big-time names like Jeffrey McCulloch, DeAndre Christmas-Giles, Andreas Greedy-Williams, Clifton Lewis, just to name a few. But, Peroni, what do you think about this weekend, man? Tell me about it. What's your thoughts?
A&M just needs to stop a little momentum that Texas started last weekend. You know, Texas picked up one commit, but there's a lot of buzz with them and the top guys. A&M could really make an impression on Jeffrey McCulloch, and maybe he comes out talking high about the Aggies or saying the Aggies lead again, and that would really, really turn the tables in favor of the Aggies. So I think he's by far and away the most important guy this weekend.
Yeah, sticking with Jeffrey McCulloch, Brian, there's a lot of talk about where he's leaning right now. And we understand that there's a lot of signs pointing towards, him signing with Texas, and the fact that they made a big time impression on not only him but a lot of guys last weekend. I want to get your take, and I'll follow up on it. But for me, when I look at Jeffrey McCulloch's recruitment, and hearing what he's told me on and off the record, even just recently, before the Under Armour All-American game, and how he felt like Texas A&M was his favorite before all of the drama that ensued with both quarterbacks leaving and the talks about Kevin Sumlin heading to the NFL. I want to get your take on if you're A&M and you're selling it to him this weekend, what are some of the most important points that you're hitting on to him and his family while they're in town?
I mean, obviously, early playing time. I mean, that's something that I think A&M can offer. A&M has linebackers on the depth chart, but not really the proven guys. Richard Moore may have more experience than almost anybody, and he was just an undersized true freshman this year, so there's that. He's got Stanford, Notre Dame on his list. Academics are a big deal to him, so, take him to engineering or whatever it is that he wants to major in, pre-med or whatever it is, introduce him to the professors there, really show him that it can, help him in whatever career he's looking to choose, and sell to parents. But, I think the biggest thing would be sell John Chavis. I mean, Chavis has put guys in the league. He's one of the most well-respected defense coordinators in college football. Just let him do his work.
I completely agree with everything that you're saying, and that's why there's optimism for me. We're getting a lot of heat for, outside fans. We don't really care about any of that, but, just to kind of keep things in perspective, we're not being homers by thinking that A&M can sit here and sell these guys these last couple of weekends. So you're talking about a kid who literally had Texas A&M as his leader just a few weeks ago. So it's not like, he's...
For sure. This isn't a guy like, Aaron Hansford, who's sort of coming out of the blue, a linebacker from D.C. I mean, this is a kid that A&M has been on for, over a year. So yeah, for sure. I mean, why wouldn't they be able to, get back in it? I mean, it's going to be tough, but why would, if Texas can make that run, A&M can make the same run possibly.
I know. Am I crazy thinking that this kid, since he's visited A&M more than he's visited Texas, he's visited and talked with the A&M coaches more than any other school, that they can't make up ground this weekend? I mean,
no, I don't. Yeah, that's not crazy. I mean, I don't think anybody knows what he's doing. I don't think the A&M coaches know. I don't think Texas coaches know. I don't think Notre Dame coaches know. He had an in-home visit last night with David Shaw at Stanford. He's got Charlie Strong in tonight. I mean, he's got a lot going on and a lot of decisions to make in the next week and a half. So I don't think he knows what he's going to do either. So yeah, I mean, there's plenty of time, and A&M getting this last official visit is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, and if I'm A&M, I'm selling law school more than I'm selling football. That's me. I'm selling. Okay, look, this kid is one of those types that understands that what the statistics are. Very, very bright young man, obviously getting into Stanford supports that fact. But when you look at the way he's operating right now, it's based on the fact that he's probably not going to make it to the NFL just based off statistics. So what is he going to be able? What school is going to be able to put him in position to get where he ultimately wants to be, and that's to be a lawyer. So to me, that's what I'm selling at Texas A&M, and them getting a law school, no matter where it's ranked right now compared to others. Being able to put him in position to do that after he's done at Texas A&M, I think is key. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, but I think a lot of times that's overblown. I mean, any school, any college can get you into law school or medical school. I mean, I think that sometimes fans think that's a bigger deal. It's like when fans say, "Oh, our engineering is ranked this and their engineering is ranked that." I mean, it's just just have to let the coaches say, "Hey, it doesn't really matter what you do. They're all good schools." So, I do agree that that's a huge factor and probably the biggest factor. But at the end of the day, I think that all the schools are pretty equal in that department. I mean, if he's a good student at A&M and he's a good student at Texas and a good student at Stanford, he's getting into South Texas College of Law or wherever he wants to go. So, I think that he's still got a chance. If he's got a chance to play in the NFL, then that's important too. I mean, who's gonna prepare him that way?
Absolutely, and I definitely want to move on to some of the commits that are going to be in town this weekend that are wavering somewhat. You got Mark Jackson, fresh off an official visit to Texas. You got Moses Reynolds, who's fresh off an official visit to TCU. Charles Oliver was at Baylor last weekend. To me, when I look at it, if I'm putting him in order of importance, Mark Jackson's up there number one, and we both spent some time with him and Justin Matabuke while they were in San Antonio. Getting those two together has to be priority number one for Texas A&M and the staff this weekend. Agree or not agree?
No, I agree. I mean, out of those three guys, I would say probably the biggest priority would be Charles Oliver, just because cornerback is a neat position if you don't see a 6'2.5" kid. But I think Oliver's a lot more solid than Mark Jackson is. So when you go with that, then yeah, I think you got to go with Mark Jackson, a 4-star kid from San Antonio that's been committed to A&M for some time now. Texas made a big time impression last weekend. OU is a big threat too, but he had never met Justin Matabuke before the Army Bowl week, and they became incredibly fast friends. So, A&M's really hoping that Justin can, continue settling. A&M this weekend. Mark had told me that he didn't really know any of the other commits, so having, about 10 of the commitments in town this weekend, him getting to know him will help A&M too, for sure, because, he's a really gifted pass rusher. He's so quick off the edge that, he's a guy that really fits Chavis's defense.
Yeah, Moses Reynolds, we know that one's likely going to stick to Texas A&M because of the fact that, he's Josh's little brother. We know that, the Anderson brothers are also pretty solid to Texas A&M, haven't taken any other visits. Travin Fuller, another guy, hasn't taken another visit. Clyde Chris, who will be in town, just committed to Texas A&M. That was news that we broke to everyone last week. So, getting these guys together and forming a bond is important. Another, potential bond that could be formed, I think, over the weekend would be potentially Andreas Greedy Williams or Rodeus Lely Williams, potentially maybe playing together in College Station. That's going to be one of their big-time pitches, I'm sure, and I would be surprised if Rodarius leaves without an offer from A&M, especially if the Aggies are trying to make a move there, because Rodarius, if you look at his film, a tremendous senior year, and you can make an argument that maybe, his film is better than his brother's film, who's ranked higher. So, if you're looking at that situation and you're recruiting those guys, what would be your approach to that?
Oh, I mean, you can never have too many cornerbacks. I don't think, and A&M's going to need corners anyway. Graduating some, but Rodarius is a really good prospect. He's committed to Oklahoma State on it, in his own right. Got that offer, not based on his brother. And it's just, sort of odd to see twin brothers committed to two different places, especially, when they did so early in the process. So yeah, if A&M was able to get both of them, I mean, I think it's sort of a no-brainer. If I was the Aggies, I'd definitely offer Rodarius because he is a good player. And what if he switches and Greedy doesn't? You still have a good football player. I mean, 6-foot cornerback, is what at the opening camp. So, he's got good size. I mean, why not?
Yeah, and then you look at Clifton Lewis, another guy, 3-star linebacker, Forbin Hightower. We understand what his pedigree is, right? We understand what his brother's done and the instincts that he brings to the table. Your take on Clifton, a guy that you've watched a lot throughout his career, undersized as we know, but still one heck of a football player.
Yeah, he's a bit undersized. He was 6'1", 201 in the spring. He's a little bigger now, but flies to the football. He's not his brother Sean Lewis, who was a star for Oklahoma State, not quite as quick as Sean, but still a good player. The question about him is academics. Is he going to be on track to qualify? With A&M being in the SEC, they can't oversign, so they can't take a risk on a kid that isn't in that position. So I think that's going to be what A&M is going to be pouring over his transcripts before he meets with Kevin Summerall on Sunday. But with the lack of linebackers in the state of Texas, I don't think it would be a bad offer to offer him if he's got all that in line for sure.
I really want to hit on a couple more guys real quick before we kind of get on Texas versus Texas A&M, as we we're less than 2 weeks away from National Signing Day. DeAndre Christmas-Giles, Aaron Hansford, two interesting prospects because you can look at Aaron Hansford and there's talks about him wanting to be a wide receiver now, but he's an Under Armour All-American linebacker. And then you look at DeAndre Christmas-Giles, a New Orleans guy, and here's the thing, though. Probably wants to go to LSU, but is LSU going to have room for him? And the fact that he canceled a visit to go to College Station, this weekend is actually, I think, pretty significant. So, want to get your take. We'll start off with Christmas-Giles and what you think about him. I'll give my commentary on that, but just first off, just that situation in general with Christmas-Giles canceling that visit and then coming to College Station this weekend, and what that bodes for A&M.
Has any player, blown up more than him the past couple months?
You're right.
There is, one-time Tennessee commit, and he picked up 20 offers, the last couple of weeks of the season, it seemed. A&M is behind the 8 ball a little bit with him, but, getting him on campus, especially this late in the process, is a big deal. I think, if LSU takes him, and I think right now he is a take, it's going to be really hard. St. Aug kids, that's the same school, Leonard Fournette, and the next year Leonard Fournette, and they got several St. Aug kids on the roster. Texas also has some St. Aug kids on their roster, so, they're a threat too. But the kick and play, and with A&M losing out on Ross Blacklock, another defensive tackle is pretty important. So I can see them really selling that to him. The depth chart. Hey, look at this. Justin Manning's likely done. You got some other guys, that are about to exhaust their eligibility. So depth chart seems to look pretty good for them.
Yeah, we got Aaron Hansford coming in, Under Armour All-American from D.C. His recruitment, from what I'm told from some other national analysts in this industry, kind of all over the place. You've heard about Oregon maybe, backing off a little bit because he wants to be a wide receiver. That one, to me, is the wild card of the weekend because you never know how he's going to react to, John Chavis selling him or Aaron Moorhead selling him, Noel Mazzone, who recruited him at UCLA. I mean, it's going to be real interesting to see what his feedback is after this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, who knows what we think. I mean, it's sort of brand new to the radar, but it doesn't, seem like any school really just has a grip on that recruitment. Last weekend they hosted Jawan Williams, who was also brand new to the radar, but, Florida State was by far the front runner going into that. He says they're even now. It'd still be an upset if he didn't go to Florida State, but Hansford doesn't really have that leader, so Yeah, I mean, I could see him just coming in and being blown away. Maybe A&M tells him he can play receiver. I mean, I think that'd be silly on his part. Maybe he goes somewhere and plays receiver for a practice or two and switches back to linebacker. But yeah, who knows?
Well, I want to segue into just kind of what's going on in Austin right now and how that impacts Texas A&M. There's so much talk about how, Texas has a chance of sweeping all these kids, and they just may well be able to pull out signing every one of these kids. You look at, just what not only the other prospects are talking about, recruiter Reggie Hempel, if you don't know who that is, you see what he's talking about on Twitter. You see the pictures of Vince Young and WWF superstar Mark Henry last night, at Vince Young's Steakhouse, taking pictures. As Silsbee native, they're pulling out all the stops right now, is what I'm getting at in Austin, and they're really swinging the momentum their way, and they're really being able to sell off this 5-7 season as, you can come in and play, and we're only a few key pieces away of being able to be an instant contender. What do you think about what's going on right now?
I think that the staff has done a good job, just saying, hey, there's been some struggles the last couple of years, but we've got things going in the right direction. I mean, they're able to point to the three freshmen All-Americans and Connor Williams, Malik Jefferson, and Patrick Vahe. So, I mean, they can say, look, it's our guys. We want our guys in there. And, I mean, I can see how players would like that. And also, you got to remember this class, especially Houston kids, are really gotten close. So, if one of them goes to, if one of them decides to go to Texas, I can see the others wanting to go there too. We saw that sort of happen last year with Dalen Mack trying to get everybody, Malik Jefferson did his own thing, but, that could happen, but, A&M could, sway McCullough back this weekend and, grab some momentum there. Maybe they get him this weekend to at least say, hey, yeah, I'm coming there, maybe not publicly, and then he calls up Brandon Jones and those guys and says, hey, let's go to A&M instead. I mean, you never really know, but yeah, I mean, like you, I definitely wouldn't discount the idea or the possibility of a Texas sweep for sure.
Yeah, and you know what? I think there's a lot of people out there that think that I'm just being naive, I'm being a homer, but the fact of the matter is that Eric Cuffey was a silent commit to Texas A&M. Fact?
Yeah.
Fact. Okay, so he was, okay? Chris Daniels wanted to go to Texas A&M before they pursued Ross Blacklock. Fact?
Yeah, that is true.
Okay, so you have Jeffrey McCullough called me midweek at the Under Armour All-American game, tell me before all this stuff happened that he was going to Texas A&M. Fact?
This is true.
Okay, so we can go down the line and of guys that have actually like said that they either were leaning or wanted to go or silently committed to Texas A&M. For me to think that A&M with the opportunity to get them back on campus can't win them back over, I don't think is a big. I can't see how any rational person could think that they couldn't go and potentially pull that coup with a couple of big-time commitments down the stretch.
I mean, look at last year. Texas had all that momentum late last year, too. It seemed like they were going to get Kyler Murray. Sorry, A&M fans bring up that name, but it seemed like they were going to get Kyler Murray, Dalen Mack, and all those guys, and A&M turned the tide. I mean, Kyler, was almost assuredly headed there, and if he went there, Dalen probably, would have considered following too. I mean, I know Texas felt really good about both those guys, and A&M swung the tide late, so, there's no reason to think they can't do so again. This is reminding me a lot of last year. I mean, it really looked like Texas was going to pull that same thing, so they very well could do it this year, but I wouldn't say it's a slam dunk by any means.
Yeah, and, you look at, recruiter Reggie and, Reggie Hempel, talented guy out of Manville, very vocal on Twitter. But at the end of the day, I don't think he understands how this recruiting thing works out, ultimately at times, whereas guys can say that they're going to do one thing and get caught up, in the moment in visits. Not to say that he couldn't ultimately be right, but I mean, there's no way to peg anyone to any one of these schools right now.
No, I totally agree. I mean, even there may have been some silent commitments given to Texas, but at one time Jordan Elliott gave a silent commitment to Texas and committed to Michigan not too long later. Elliott may end up switching back to Texas, but once again, we saw with Cuffey, silence don't really mean anything. Public commitments barely mean anything. Silence meaning, even less in my mind.
And I completely agree with you, and I think there's plenty of evidence that would suggest that silence don't mean anything. To me, that's what I'm saying. Like, when you look at these next 2 weekends, and even this weekend, if A&M gets some momentum, we know they're going to get Starkel here in a little bit. He's going to be committed. You potentially get Courtney Davis next week. You get momentum going back in your direction. And that could really pay dividends for you. You get Mark Jackson to reaffirm his commitment to A&M and then start recruiting for you. I mean, there's not a lot of foresight right now, I think, from Longhorn fans that want to give any credit to what Texas A&M's been able to accomplish over the past few years in terms of being able to close out some of their big names.
Yeah, I mean, A&M has struggled with some, but they've closed on plenty. So, yeah, I mean, no matter what, it's going to be a fun ride, for fans of both schools these last 2 weeks. Last year, well, I guess outside of Kyler and Dalen, things were a bit anticlimactic. On signing day, I mean, A&M was done with the faxes by 9:30 in the morning. That's not going to be the case this year, at least who they're watching. So, I mean, signing day is going to be a little more fun for A&M fans this year.
Yeah, and finally, when you look at potentially like an Eric Cuffey and some of these guys that maybe an Eric Monroe that could potentially visit that last weekend. What's your approach if you're A&M to get those guys back in the boat or maybe question their either commitments or silent commitments, whatever they may be, if you're John Chavis? Because if I'm him and you look at what they've been able to produce in the secondary, making Brandon Jones a running back to potential draftee here in a couple months.
Brandon Williams.
Brandon Williams. Oh, I'm stuck on Brandon Jones over here. Yeah, Brandon Williams. Armani Watts, Justin Evans. Those guys have done some really great things in the secondary under just 1 year of tutelage under John Chavis. I mean, what's your approach and what's your sales point if you're Chavis? When you get these guys one-on-one, face-to-face this weekend and next week.
Well, I mean, that's just what Chavis has to do. Say, hey, trust me. Here's my, look at me. Look what I've done. The DBs really turned around this year. Armani Watts and Donovan Wilson both had, big years at safety. Devontae Harris, who, despite being a 3-year starter coming into the year, people had sort of written him off. I mean, he had a really good senior year. A lot of people aren't giving enough credit for that. So, yeah, just say, look what I've been able to do in the past, and and look what I can do with you, and just A&M's got to hope that works. Hope these guys pay attention to that.
All right, finally, we're gonna kind of put our balls on the table, so to speak. And when I say balls, crystal balls, I want you to tell me. We're gonna go through one by one with some kids where you think they're potentially gonna go. Your prediction, my prediction. I don't care if we're wrong a week and a half from now, because things can change. But as of 3:58 on January 21st, 2016, I want to know where you think Brandon Jones is going right now, Brian Peroni.
Oh, man. He's the one. I could say Baylor, and it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know with him. My crystal ball to him is still with A&M. It has been this whole time. I'm going to say A&M right now. I'm probably wrong. I'll say A&M.
Yeah, the thing about me with Brandon is that I'm real big on just looking at kids' personalities and how they fit. You look at Malik Jefferson compared to Dalen Mack. A lot of different just personality traits that fit these different schools. And I go back to like what R.C. Slocum has said plenty of times. Either you're just enamored with one of these schools, right? And they're both great programs, but at the end of the day, you're either going to be enamored with Texas or going to be enamored with Texas A&M. And I think Brandon Jones fits Texas A&M personality-wise, and I think that's where, ultimately where his family wants him. So I'm going to agree with you on A&M. Jeffrey McCulloch, the Shark, I could see him all over the place too. Talking to a Stanford coach here recently, it's crazy. Their percentage of kids that they actually offer that get in, their percentage of actually getting commitments from kids that they offer that actually get accepted to Stanford academically is extremely high. I think it's like 95%. While I don't think he's going to end up at Stanford, I think right now, if I make a prediction, I think it will be Texas. I think A&M's going to get their fair share. I think Texas is going to get their fair share. But what would your take be? I'm predicting Texas. What do you think about Jeffrey McCulloch?
I thought I was going to be a contrarian to you, but I think Texas as well right now. I mean, A&M's going to do their best with Texas. I built up a ton last week. I mean, that's an uphill battle. So I think Texas as well, and he's friends with all those other guys. I could see, Jordan Elliott flipping to Texas. I could see Montavious Jackson ending up there. I mean, all these guys from Houston. So I'd say Texas right now.
Yeah, just again talking to a lot of people that have been covering it for a long time. You rarely see a team sweep the table. So I understand there's going to be some guys that Texas gets. There's going to be some guys that A&M gets. None of them are going to get everyone that they want. And that takes me to Chris Daniels, Euless Trinity defensive tackle, just decommitted from Oklahoma last night. I talked to him in depth on and off the record. And what I feel comfortable talking about is that I feel like if today was signing day, it would be Texas. But as he expressed to me, he wants to go back to College Station and see if he feels the same feeling that he had when he fell in love with the school earlier this fall. And as you know, and as I know, and some others know, that's where he wanted to go. A&M kind of focused on Ross Blacklock, lost out on that sweepstakes, and now they're going to have to go back and try to make up ground there. What's your take, just from your experience and seeing that, that schools that have had to go that same route where they've had a kid that they probably have committed, didn't get the guy that they ultimately wanted. Now they're having to come back on their second guy, and how that works out for them ultimately.
It's usually 50-50. You never really know. It depends on how well A&M can explain it. But I think kids these days realize that there is a pecking order. I mean, it's just that's the case. And Blacklock is a bigger body in the middle. Well, maybe they could sell him. That's what we needed at the time. They could say, hey, we needed that. But yeah, Daniels does have an affinity for A&M. Texas is the leader right now for sure, but Daniels has the affinity for A&M. So with A&M getting that last visit, I would, as long as he makes the visit, I would say, I would guess A&M right now. It's one of those 51-49 things, but I would say A&M right now.
Yeah. He told me last night, ultimately he kind of sees himself in Austin, but he goes, well, I can't predict that ultimately because I don't know what it's going to be like and what the feelings I'm going to get when I get back to College Station. So that'll be interesting. Eric Cuffey, another one, we understand what's going on there, where his parents, especially his dad's kind of leaning right now. For me, when you're making kind of like a key point there, key factor, you have to get mom and dad up to College Station if you want to have any chance of signing Eric Cuffey, because rarely do you see a kid sign off and go to a school and pull a Landon Collins, right, without their parents' full and unconditional support.
No, I agree. And so unless that happens, I think Texas is in the driver's seat there.
So that means Texas A&M is going to have to go some either different routes if the predictions come out the way that we see them. I mean, are we going at this point Brandon Jones A&M, Jeffrey McCulloch, Eric Cuffey Texas, Chris Daniels Texas, and then maybe Christmas Giles? I think if you're A&M, you just want to split one of the defensive tackles, Christmas Giles or Daniels, and I think you want to split one of the linebackers, Brandon Jones and Jeffrey McCulloch. I mean, one of the five-star, not linebackers, but one of the five-star prospects. You got to get one of those just from a perception standpoint. And if you don't get one or both of them, you're going to go Clifton Lewis, and then, you're going to try to go maybe after a Clifford Chapman out of New Orleans to kind of fill those roles. So there's a lot of movement. There's a lot of chess plays left to be made before now in National Signing Day, even though it's just a week and a half away. There's just a ton of drama left on the table for these guys, man. And I don't know if you agree with me, but it's going to be fun to follow, and hopefully for these Aggie fans listening, they get some pretty good news or somewhat good news here in a week and a half.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I said a lot more action than last year. Signing day won't be over by 9:30 in the morning. So shoot, one of these kids wouldn't surprise me. They said, "Hey, I'm not signing anywhere that day." We're waiting on Brandon Jones 3 weeks from now still, but who knows? But yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Well, good stuff, Peroni. That's all we got for today. We'll probably do another one of these next week, but that's kind of where things stand right now. We're waiting for a lot of these kids to kind of get through College Station this weekend, see where things stand. We'll keep you guys up